The Arctic Freezer 33 eSports 1 CPU cooler. It certainly looks baller, but can it compete with the famous Hyper 212 Evo? Let's find out. Hey, welcome to Zach's Tech Turf. So the cooling company Arctic was cool enough to send over this Freezer 33 eSports 1 CPU cooler, and actually a couple other things, by the way, so thank you. So today we're going to pit this up against the competition and see if it's worth your money. The Freezer 33 eSports 1 is a $30 CPU cooler, link in the description, and it stands 150 millimeters tall, 103 millimeters from fan to fan if you went with a full push-pull setup, and it's 123 millimeters deep. It supports Intel sockets 1150, 1151, 1155, 1156, 2011, 2011-3, 2066, and the AMD AM4 socket. Yeah, it's got a lot of flexibility, which is something I definitely like in a CPU cooler. This CPU cooler is rocking an all-black thermal coating, including the heat pipes, which is definitely miles ahead in the aesthetics department of most air coolers. That fan in the front is a 120mm Arctic Bionics PWM fan, which you can buy separately. I actually have some in my main gaming PC. You can pick between a few different colors, and in the box you'll find a metal bracket to attach a second fan on the back for a push-pull setup if you wish. I really appreciate just how easy you can snap a fan on here. You can basically put any 120mm fan that you want and it just snaps right on. It's way easier than anything I've ever seen. The fan is also rocking a built-in splitter, so you can connect that second CPU fan to it, and that way you only take up one motherboard fan header. Okay, so now we're over here on my little test bench setup, and before getting into the actual installation, I want to give some huge props to Arctic real quick for their installation instructions. All you have to do is scan this QR code right on the box, and it'll open up a website where all you have to put in is your language and your CPU socket, and it'll show you a video on exactly how to install the cooler. It's pretty cool. Essentially, all you have to do is screw down the two metal brackets on either side of the base, pop in the back plate depending on the CPU socket, and use the assigned screws to tighten everything down. I personally prefer the installation of this cooler way more than the 212 Evo. The 212 Evo isn't hard to install or anything, but this one was that much easier. Alright, so we got the price, socket compatibility, color options, physical tour, and the installation out of the way. The only thing left to do is to test the performance, which is obviously most important. For this video, I quickly made up this little test bench here in my office. So for testing, we're going to be using my i7-4790K, which is a 4-core, 8-thread processor. We certainly could have used something much newer like my 8700K, but that's in my gaming PC and I really didn't feel like taking that apart. We'll get our results just fine from this. We're also using an MSI Gaming 5 motherboard, and the ambient temperature in this room right now is about 21 degrees Celsius. I used two other CPU coolers for comparison today, the ridiculously famous Cooler Master 212 Evo, which is also 30 bucks, and I also brought the stock Intel cooler just so you can make a decision if it's even worth it to buy an aftermarket CPU cooler at all. I applied a pea-sized blob of Arctic's own MX4 thermal paste for all of these coolers. I tested all three of these CPUs here within about an hour of each other just so we could get some consistency, and I also tested both at idle and 100% load using Cinebench. I ran it a couple times, and then I also tested both at stock speeds and with an overclock. I also just put the fan speed at 100% and out here on this test bench and not in a case, just so we could see the best case scenario. Keep in mind your results may vary depending on your case and your fan curve. For the idle test at stock speeds, here are the results. The Freezer 33 eSports 1 had the 4790K sitting at a chilly 30 degrees Celsius, while the 212 Evo was at 33 and the Intel cooler was at 37. For the idle test but with an overclock, the eSports 1 resulted in 37 degrees, the 212 Evo was at 39 degrees, and the Intel stock cooler was already up to 48 degrees. After these idle tests, we can already see that the Freezer 33 eSports 1 is outperforming the 212 Evo, but I think that's mostly just because this Bionics fan is a little bit better than the Cooler Master fan that comes on the 212 Evo. For our 3x Cinebench testing resulting at stock speeds, the Arctic cooler got up to a max temperature of 54, the 212 Evo got up to 62, and the Intel cooler got up to 78. And finally, with the applied overclock after the Cinebench testing, the freezer reached a max temperature of 66, the 212 Evo got up to 68, and I had to stop the Intel cooler testing because within about 10 seconds it shot up to 100 degrees, which I figured would happen. So yeah, definitely don't overclock your CPUs too much on stock coolers. So after all that testing, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that the Arctic Freezer 33 eSports 1 actually does outperform the Hyper 212 Evo, and for sound, I don't have a decibel tester or anything like that, yeah, I definitely prefer the sound of the Freezer 33 more than the 212. The 212 kind of has like a high-pitched sound to it, and the Freezer 33 just sounds like a normal fan. I don't know, it wasn't even that loud at 100%. And like I said, you can definitely pair this CPU with some of the latest and greatest processors like an 8700K or a Ryzen 7. So if this style and color scheme fits your build and you're looking for great performance, I highly recommend it. It's also rocking a huge 10-year warranty for bonus points. Well, that wraps up my review of the Arctic Freezer 33 eSports 1 CPU cooler. Huge thank you to Arctic again for sending this over. I'm actually going to be placing this in some very near future builds. Speaking of which, I've been doing a lot of used PC part hustle lately, so be on the lookout for that. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please drop a like down below to help support my channel, and as always, thank you for watching, and please subscribe for more Zach's Tech Turf videos.